Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning.
Ooh, good energy. I love this. Yes. I'm so excited for this talk. My name is
Yes.
Alexis Bennett Parker. I am the shopping director at Essence.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because this is one of my favorite topics, leadership. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about all the things, not just the title, but what it really means to be a leader. I'm so excited to be here with Krystal. I'll
Yes.
let you introduce yourself as well, and
Thank
please tell
you.
us about your book.
Absolutely. First of all, thank y'all for coming and supporting. And thank you for being the moderator of this conversation. I'm excited to be in conversation with you. And I'm Krystal Hardy Allen. As I was sharing a few moments ago in the back, I'm a former educator turned social entrepreneur. So I am the founder and CEO of a management consulting firm. I'm also an author. And a public speaker, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about leadership, management, faith, authenticity, and all the things that help us become who the good Lord has called us to be.
Love that.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. What are some of the internal traits that leaders really need to focus on? I think a lot of times we think about the title and the visibility.
Yeah.
So what does it take within to
Yeah.
be a strong, great leader?
Yeah. For me, one of the things I think about is the importance of committing to doing your own inner work, right? I think that we often focus, like you said, on the outside and the title, but the things that happen within us, if we are not healed from those things, if we don't have a healthy sense of self-awareness, right? Emotional regulation, understanding of how to build healthy relationships, as well as an understanding of what we need in terms of self-care and balance, we won't lead well because we're not leading ourselves first well. So one of the things I think is, internal work. I think a second component that's really important for leadership is humility, right? I think often leaders are caught up in the ego of what it means to be a leader, as opposed to saying being a leader is actually about being a good servant, right? And really thinking about what do those that I lead, I manage, my direct reports, who are they and what do they need? And then also thinking about the legacy, the impression, the perspective you want to leave with them so that 5-10 years from now, they are a better human being and leader because you were that example and role model of what was possible and what good leadership should look like, right? So those are just two things I'll say. Again, internal work, humility. Actually, I'm going to add a third. I actually think operational excellence, right? So not perfection, but you have to be committed to your craft. We don't know everything, so we have to continue to be continuous learners. But I do think there's something to be said about being committed to refining your craft, right? Whatever gift and talent God has put on the inside of us is one thing to have the gift and talent and to know that it'll open and make room and ways for you is another thing to say, when I'm in the room, do I have the ability to stay in the room and to make the impact that God has called me to make in the room? That's different than cosmetically getting a seat at the table.
I love that because I think oftentimes we get distracted and we think that the work stops after school, after you graduate, but it's a continuous learning that you have to
Absolutely.
continue to sharpen your craft.
Absolutely.
You mentioned being a servant, even to your direct reports. And I'm going to ask the questions that I'm genuinely curious about because as a leader, sometimes I feel like I want to serve my direct reports, but sometimes I struggle with delegation. So how do you balance serving and showing them at the same time that you're a team player and you're willing to also get your hands dirty and do the work? And at the same time, how do you motivate them to do the work without micromanaging? So
that's a really good question, and it's definitely something that I have struggled with in my past. I'm an overachiever, so I like to get it done, focus, be in my zone. But I recognize two different things. I think one thing was spiritual for me, and it was God helping me to understand that I can't expand your territory if you're not willing to surrender to the help that I send you. And so part of it was recognizing you have help, and if people don't know how to do something yet, I have to slow down to build the capacity and to teach, right? And once you go slow to go fast and build the capacity, then people are ready, right? They're ready to take the plan and run the play. So I think that was one thing. And I think in the technical realm, I recognize that the quality of my work is jeopardized when I don't delegate. Because at work, I become a bottleneck, right? And so in order for us to be a successful business, not just in revenue, right? Like 7 figures, beyond, all that stuff can happen. And yet behind the scenes, if your infrastructure is not right, it is a telltale sign that you might not have longevity or sustainability in business, right? And so I recognize that delegation was a method of sustainability. That if I want to be in this for the long haul, I have to be willing to grow a team and to support them well. In the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, rest in peace, people may forget what you say, people may forget what you do, but people will never, ever forget the way you've made them feel.
I love that.
Yeah.
The next question I wanted to ask, why is it so hard for leaders sometimes to take their values and bring them into the workplace and put them to work, to action?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think, one, there is the need to reconcile the fact that your values can also not be in conflict with an organization's values, that you actually should seek places of employment that align to your values to begin with. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a situation where you may very well be selling your soul, right, to make professional success happen. And so I think what we want to look for is alignment and congruence. In what ways do who I am and what I need and what I stand for align with who I work for, right? What this organization stands for and the impact or change that, it's doing in the world. I think the second thing is judgment, right? Sometimes society will put an emphasis on a certain value and say that it's not right or it's taboo, and you have to stand in the confidence to say, no, this is who I am, and I'm willing to actually be a little different, right? I think faith is one of those things for me, that in business, you're often socialized to believe that you shouldn't talk about business and faith, right? And for me, it's a completely opposite, because God is the reason why my business is successful. And so instead of saying I'm not ever going to talk about it and it's going to tank my business, I say, actually, this is who I am, and I'm going to lead from a place of faith and show the world what is possible. That I can be a boss and I can love God at the same time.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I enjoy working at Essence so much. I was just telling you behind the stage yesterday, before we started festival, we said a prayer together. And I've never done that at any company I've ever worked for. So it's amazing to be able to work at a company that also shares the same values that you share.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about motivating your employees to stay at a company. What makes
retention?
As a leader, what makes employees stay and what makes them leave?
Oh, that's a really great question. And I'll ask folks in the audience, have y'all ever seen good talent leave an organization because they weren't treated well? Right. And so part of it is that we actually have to not focus solely on what people can do for us, but how to treat people better at work, right? When people are treated well, they're more productive. When you are in a toxic work environment, you don't want to stay. We actually spend more time with people we work with than the folks that we live with at home. Right? Ask my husband. And so the reality is that we have to think about, how do we create an environment that is supportive, that holds folks accountable, but it's a place that people feel good to come to. And you need to like the people you work with. Not be the best friend, but there's a factor of trust that's important, right? I think that's the second piece. When there's a lack of trust, people also tend to exit, right? Imagine being granted a role and not being trusted to do the thing that they hired you to do. People will leave for that reason, because they don't have to, object themselves to that type of pressure unnecessarily. And I think a third thing that I think about often are the material resources and benefits. And I think that's a very real economic conversation we have to have. I am a former educator, and education is a noble profession, and yet it is not paid well. And so we expect the people who are training up the next generation to live at a level in salary that barely meets the living wage, right? And so in the end of the day, we have to figure out a way to close pay gaps. We have to give people good benefits, retirement, all those things. We can't create organizations where the CEO is thriving and people that work for the organization are struggling and trying to figure out how to make it paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Also, I was thinking about I think there's a lot of misconceptions on really what it means to be a leader.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you see people get wrong when you're consulting with them?
That's real good.
And yes, I would love to just hear kind of like how you help them fix those misconceptions.
So one thing that I think is a common misconception in leadership, y'all, is vision setting. Meaning some leaders have a vision in their head that they have never articulated clearly to those that should be following and working within the organization. And so we have to think, to what extent do people understand where we're going 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now? Because people need to understand, is this a vision I'm on board with, right? I think the second thing is the ability to manage people really well, right? And so performance management is really important. And what I tend to find is that people assume just because you are an amazing individual contributor that you're going to be a great manager of people. Those are two different skill sets. Just because I can raise money exceptionally well doesn't mean I'm now ready to manage a team of 10 fundraisers. And so we mistakenly promote people into leadership because of their potential, but not because of their readiness. And so we have to really say, what does professional growth planning look like to get people ready, right, to lead folks well? And the third thing that I'll say that often is a misconception in leadership is the ability to manage projects and programs really well. We tend to think, well, the person who's the project manager on the team should have the most technical skill. And really, you yourself have to also have proper oversight, right? You have to you have to inspect what you expect. Right? And when you don't manage projects well, people well, programs well, you are a hypocritical leader because you're asking people to do things, right, that you yourself are not modeling. And it's really hard to follow folks who don't practice what they preach. And so that is really important, right? And our consulting firm really takes the time to coach leaders, to train leaders who are in the seat, but also those who are getting ready to be in the seat. I'll say this last, and this is just a faith perspective. Leading people is an act of stewardship. And I actually think that we have to think from a spiritual standpoint that God is allowing you to lead other people because he trusts that you have what it takes to lead them well. And so what we want to do is not fumble the ball, right? Because just as we're giving blessings, they can also be taken away. Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I feel like, I know you work with a lot of leaders, so I'm curious to know some of the top leaders that you've worked with.
Yeah.
What do they all kind of have in common? Is there any like common threads that you see like, oh, this person is a great leader because they do this, and you kind of connect the dots?
Yeah, I would definitely say one of the things that comes across companies, and we worked with, the NFL, Apple, Google, lots of different organizations, school systems, churches, you name it. I don't care where we work. 5 things that come to mind. 1, they build trust. Really good leaders build trust. And I want to say this, y'all. Trust is not just making people feel good like the butterflies. It's the ability as a leader when you're wrong to actually apologize. Right? Not deflect, not gaslight, not minimize what other people have to say, but actually apologize and admit your error and be able to reconcile it. And I think some of the top leaders know how to do that well, right? I think a second piece is that those top leaders are very self-aware, right? It is very important to know who you are and to know your limitations. And so those leaders don't overcommit. In other words, they don't overpromise and underdeliver. When you're not self-aware, you say yes to everything, and then you drop a lot of balls, right? And that could come from a spirit of people-pleasing. It could come from a lot of different things. But self-aware leaders, those great leaders, they understand that, for instance, every time I'm free, I'm not available. And I want us to sit with that. Every time you're free, you're not available, right? And what that literally means is that you have to understand the mental capacity you have, the emotional, the physical, right? So we don't burn ourselves out for the mission that we've been called to fulfill, right? The third thing I would say is that really good leaders are not conflict averse. They lean into conflict as an opportunity. I don't mean conflict like we're fighting, but they understand that difficult conversations have to happen. And you can have a difficult conversation, hold someone accountable in the spirit of love. It doesn't have to be insulting, it doesn't have to be demeaning, but good leaders are not passive aggressive. Really good leaders are direct, right? Because they understand that if I don't address this, I'm actually contributing to the problem. Every time I see something that I don't address it, I can't complain about it because I'm not willing to fix it. So those are just some ingredients I think about.
Love that. Do you think that people are born leaders, or can you learn how to become a good leader?
That's a great question. I actually think it's both, y'all. I think that people are innately born with certain characteristics, right? And I also think that leadership can be taught and, the capacity built around it. So for example, I am in my 40s. I won't tell y'all which number in my 40s, but I have been a boss, not by title, but by leadership my entire life, whether it was kindergarten and I want to be first in line, or whether it is me having a little brother and trying to tell him what to do. God bless his heart, because he had to put up with me for a lot of years of doing that. I have always been willing to take initiative, right? I'm also from one of the most historic small towns in America in the civil rights movement, Selma, Alabama, right? And so I would like to believe that the people of Selma and how they stood up for what they believed in rubbed off also on me, right? That when I'm in environments where something's not right, I actually say, that's not right, right? So I think in ways it can be born, you can be born with it, but I also think it can be cultivated. And in my own example, I learned a lot of things about what good leadership was and was not. I'll give you a short, quick example. I used to think that every time something was not right, I needed to say something. And so God helped me understand, I need you to read the room, because sometimes the best thing you can do in this situation is step back and not say anything at all, because I'm going to fight your battle, right? And so I learned that not everything I feel has to be said. And I learned over time to be slower to speak and quicker to listen, right? Which is Bible. And so that's taught, right? Wasn't born with it. I was born with talks too much. I got unsatisfactory in conduct, y'all, every year of elementary school at Shiloh Elementary in Sardis, Alabama.
I wanted to go back because you mentioned a great leader is not passive aggressive. They're direct.
Yes.
And so I wonder if you have any advice for us on how to have those difficult conversations as a leader without fear.
Yeah. So one thing I think that we should do is check the context. In other words, the time and place. We can't ambush, y'all, people with difficult conversations. If I am on my way to my car to go home, I'm emotionally drained probably from the day. Like, I just want to get in my car. And you coming up to me saying, hey, can I talk to you? Can I give you feedback on the meeting? You won't get Jesus. You might get like, girl, stop. Can we talk on Thursday? And if you keep going, you won't get the Holy Spirit either, And so I think that we have to consider context, right? Because in other words, we have to say, is this a conversation that should happen in person? Is it a phone call? For some of us, we need to have a mediator. Like, you might not need to talk to that person one-on-one. You might need to have a third person present, right? So we have to think, am I in the right headspace? Am I emotional in this moment? Because when we are emotional, we speak from our emotions. And sometimes then we regret what we've said, right? And I think, secondly, we have to be able to isolate the action without assassinating someone's character. So I can say that in the meeting, you cut me off 3 times, and every time you do, it makes me feel like what I have to say is unimportant. I can say that instead of saying, well, let's talk because I just think you're rude. You know what that is going to get? Defense. And people are going to be more geared towards a clapback than they are listening to the fact that the issue is that you interject when people speak. You can't hear that when you've been called rude, right? So how you enter the conversations matter to keep the main thing, and then focus on the solution that can address whatever you're discussing at that moment. Yeah.
And I wonder if there's anything that's a little bit different if you're working in like a remote role. So if you're a leader
really
and your team is in different states, how do you lead and from a distance?
Yeah, that's so good. How many of y'all work remote? Raise your hand. Remote work. Got it. So y'all definitely know. I think number one, we have to set clear expectations of what we want remote work culture to be. And we have to also understand that COVID happened to us, and a lot of organizations weren't prepared, right? So we have to understand that whatever you want, we have to be explicit, because this is where passive-aggressive leadership comes in, right? We are giving people feedback about things we never first set an expectation to. So if I never explicitly told you something, how can you give me feedback about me doing it incorrectly when you never set the standard, right? And so that can be as simple as, is the camera on or off? Are we on mute? Are we not? Are you talking and contributing? Are you not? Are we putting stuff in the chat? Are we not? But also, how do we use one another's time, right? We can't just add meetings to the calendar for someone without asking them, is this a good time to meet, right? And so I just think we have to set clear expectations because a toxic work environment is not just in the physical realm. You can work for a remote company and it still be a toxic work environment. So it's not just about the physical interactions. People can have microaggressions even in a virtual context. Yeah.
And then also, I feel like it's sometimes hard to get your team members to be motivated. Yeah. Like, obviously, people want more money. That helps, right? Yeah. But what are some other ways besides salary that you can inspire the team to be motivated to do certain things for the company?
That's a really great question. I'm going to go back to the audience. How many of y'all want more money on your job? Oh, y'all don't? Some hands are not down. Look, listen, Linda, everybody, we want more money. And here are the other things that we also value. If we can't get money, one, we want the opportunity for transparency, right? Because the thing is, when someone tells you, oh, we have budget cuts, but then you see them spending money in a whole bunch of other areas, you're like, what? Right? And so there may be real rationale behind where we spend money and where we don't, but I think people respect transparency, right? Like, be straightforward with us, because this is our livelihood. You got to think, some of us are buying homes based on the salaries we make right now. And so if a leader knows that we're about to lay off 100 people in 2 months and y'all haven't said anything and you just get an email 2 weeks before the layoff, that's devastating. That's trauma. That can impact a whole household. So I think leaders have to learn how to be transparent and not hide the ball in what's going on in our organizations, right? I think a second thing is that we have to create comfortable conditions for people to work. So whether that is flex days, whether that is additional PTO, right? Some folks in this room are working around the clock and you only get 4 to 5 days off for a whole year. That's too little time, right? And so we have to give people more time off. We have to create flexible work conditions for parents, right? There are also people at work who are caregivers. Like, they're really caring for elderly folks in their family. And so we can't be inhumane to not understand that the real life circumstances people are dealing with impact how they show up at work, right? This is heavy, but it's real. You know, if I'm caring for a spouse, a mom, whoever, and they have a cancer diagnosis, and I have to take them to dialysis, and I have to leave work at a certain time to get there on time, that impacts how I show up at work. Number one, when work is over, I'm going home. Because other people can play around, they can do happy hour, that's good, but like your life looks different, right? And so you want to make sure that every moment counts when you're there, so you can be a present caregiver, for example, when you get home. So we have to have, work conditions that are tuned to the human condition. Last thing that I will say is that we have to get creative about packages, right? So there are some organizations that give gym memberships. I'm a business owner, and I give an all expense paid wellness retreat to our whole staff. Like 2 years ago, we went to Napa. So it's not just me saying, I want to go to Napa Wine Valley as a CEO. No, we're taking the whole team to Napa. We're going to enjoy wine together. They're going to get massages, and the company is going to pay for it because y'all are good to the company, right? And so that, for me, even if I can't pay 6 figures for a particular position, giving unforgettable experiences, right, to folks is something that they appreciate, as well as knowing that when they have a real life circumstance, and I'll give you this last example, Hurricane Ida hit this region, if you're from this region, and during that time, as a CEO, I decided to take money from the business and make sure that contractors on our team at that time had hotels paid for, they had food paid for, courtesy of us, right? Because again, what does it look like for me and my husband to be fine in a storm, but the team, y'all just figure it out. But y'all better log on to work at 8 o'clock, right? And so instead I said, we're gonna be off collectively until the power is turned on for everybody. And in the interim, here are gift cards to take care of food and hotel for you and your family. And let me tell y'all something. I have the same staff with me. You know why? Because going back to Dr. Maya Angelou's quote, people never forget the way you treat them, right? And when you treat people well, they want to work well and they want to work longer for you or for the organization. So we have to always pay attention to organizations where there's constant turnover. Right? And it's not an excuse that this person left for this reason, this person left. No, why are people leaving over and over again? And are we really willing to fix the real reason people are leaving, to make it a better place?
So it's really just humanity,
it is humanity.
Being a human.
Yes, it's being inclusive. It is being mindful. And I'm going to go back to this, y'all, because there's nothing new under the sun. The golden rule still applies. It's 2026, but those of you who were raised to know, treat people the way you want to be treated. That has to still apply in the workplace today. And so often people are making decisions that they wouldn't want for themselves, but they're okay to do it for someone else. So when we learn how to love people, right? And love is not just support. Love is also holding people accountable. Right? When we learn how to do both of those well, we have better workplace environments. I hold you accountable because I want to call you higher, not call you out. And I'm going to say that again. There's a difference, right, between calling people higher versus calling them out. And when you're working from a deficit mindset, you believe that accountability is an attack. Right? When you work from an asset-based mindset and you love people, then you recognize, and I want to say this spiritually for folks of faith in the audience, because accountability is also very spiritual. It's God's way of helping us become better. And we have to be open to receive. The Bible talks about rebuke, right? But we have to be open to receive constructive criticism because you're not always right. You don't do everything right every time. And so if you're not able to grow, God is not able to grow your territory, right? And so we have to really think about that, y'all, because those of you who are asking God, expand my territory, do this for me, do this thing, we have to understand, how are we being good stewards of what he already gave us? And in the areas of growth, are you diligently working on you where God told you to work on you? And if you're not doing that, you can't expect him to work miracles, right, out of your disobedience, right? Obedience begets greatness. And when we disobey, we stay stuck and stagnant or we regress. Yeah.
And if there's anyone here that is feeling called to be a leader, but they're not sure where to start, what advice would you give to them?
Oh, I have some advice for y'all, okay? So this is a shameless plug. Number one, I have a book in my hand, and it's called What Goes Unspoken. And I'm going to be signing and selling some of those in a moment. And so those of you who are new to leadership or you've been in leadership for a while, you can actually get this text to understand how to be mindful, how to be inclusive in every aspect of what you do, marketing, branding, HR, you name it, right? It breaks it all down. Number two, here's my faith tidbit, right? We need to pray. And when I say pray, I mean, sometimes every opportunity that's a good opportunity is not a God opportunity. And I'm going to say that again. Every good thing that's brought to us is not something we should say yes to. We have to be discerning, right? And so good opportunities can be very attractive, but real inner work will say, yes, this is exciting, but am I truly ready? Right? Because when you walk through the door, but you don't have the character to keep you in the room, then you fumble the blessing or the open door that God has brought your way. And so I think we have to really pray and say, God, do you want this for me? What is your will, not just my own? In my flesh, am I doing this to stunt? In my flesh, am I doing this for clout? Or am I doing this because I feel deep on the inside of me that God has called me to do this? And I will say this, if you are afraid of saying yes, don't worry, because if he called you to it, he's going to give you every provision you need to do the thing that he has called you to do, no matter how scary and how big it is, right? All you have to do is say yes and walk with him through it, right? Last thing I would say for leaders is to surround yourself with people who lead well. Example is everything, right? And as much as we love social media, we have to be critical consumers of social media, y'all. Not everyone with a mic on Instagram or TikTok is good counsel, right? And so you have to be able to say for yourself, who do I want to emulate? Who's holistically well? Who's aligned to my values, right? And how do we watch their example? Because sometimes if we're not careful, y'all, you're going to listen to somebody and they're going to lead you to a place. And that place sometimes can be very empty, even if it's materially full, right? And so we want to listen to the right people to make sure that we impact the world in the way that we were called to be. We're not here by accident. We're not here by mistake. There is nobody in this world like you. Like, nobody was born with your story. Nobody was born with your lived experience, right? And so you have to believe that you were equipped to do incredible things in this lifetime, and you were born for a moment like this. Step into it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for pouring into us. I am so honored, and I feel so blessed. Definitely going to take a lot of the things you said back to the office with me and do the internal work first.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
And I'm still doing mine too. Yes. We're on a journey.
Love that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's all go get our signed copies of the book.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. And thank y'all so much for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause.